and we welcome you to the teacher training info session. So for those of you that are here with us in the studio, thank you for coming along, and everyone looks beautiful in masks. A few more days of this and we'll be free. And to everyone joining us via Zoom, welcome. The info session, approximately an hour and a half, so we'll be in here together for maybe up to an hour, maybe a little bit less, depending on how many questions you might have and what we get to cover. And then we'll be going up for morning tea. So I've made a South Indian payasam, which is made from, this one's made from pineapple and sago. It's very nice, one of my favorites, and some chai as well. So for those of you that are on Zoom, obviously you can't join us for morning tea. I can share the recipe. So we are going to begin, as we begin all of our programs, with the chanting of the pranavam, which is the Om mantra. And we're going to contextualize this a little. It is, to chant the Om mantra is a tradition that dates back at least 3,500 years. And so we're going to begin our training at the beginning of yoga. So we're going to go right back in time, looking at some of the early ancient origins of this yogic knowledge and practice. A lot of what we're doing together here in the studio and in the yoga class has its roots in this beautiful tradition that dates back so many thousands of years. And over the course of this training, we're going to be going on this journey together. Not only is it a theoretical, it is theoretical in that we will be looking at the history and the philosophy, but more importantly, it is the experience of these traditions and contextualizing what we're doing in this lineage, so we know what we're doing, where it came from and why. And this is so deeply enriching.
Say a few bits.
You wanted to talk about?
Yeah. We also want to extend our heartfelt compassion to all of those people who are not as fortunate as us and who are suffering through what must be an extremely difficult time in India. We're very connected to India before the current circumstances. We travelled regularly and we have some very close friends and mentors in India, not least of whom are the Mohans. And our thoughts go out to all of you, all of those friends in India. And we do pray and hope for your well-being and for an improvement in circumstance very soon. As Mandy's mentioned, we'll be drawing on a lot of the ancient texts in our teacher training program, and we're going to run through the program with you after the morning chant. Welcome, you can come in and join us. Come in and join us. Somebody there? Come in. And just to preface that before we start, there are two readings we want to do, one from the Upanishads and one from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which encapsulates the beauty and the meaning of this wonderful mantra, the pranavam. It's said that the pranavam is the sound that set creation in motion, but before there was anything, there was sound. And we see this concept mirrored even in the Bible, where it says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And according to the yogic paradigm, that word is Om. So that this vibration, this sound, this wave, set everything in motion. Please join us, come inside and make yourselves comfortable. One or two people still joining us. So I'd like to start by just reading two verses from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Many of you will be familiar with the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Chapter 1, verse 28. Taj japas tat artha bhavanam. How do we utilize that Om in the adoration of the divine, simply by repeating it, at the same time inquiring into, contemplating, and saturating the whole being with the substance indicated by it, that is, the omnipresent reality, which is the real meaning of Om. And then Mandy will do a reading as well.
So the Upanishads are part of the canon of works that came out of the post-Vedic period in India, so known as Vedanta, which means the end of the Vedas. And so the Upanishads were the turning point in yoga, when a lot of the traditions, the practices before that were externalized. There was a lot of ritual, there was a lot of worship of the external, so the divine in the form of the elements, for instance. And then at this point in time, and when I say point in time, I mean over a period of perhaps 500, 1,000 years, yoga became something internalized. A lot of these rituals and practices became internalized, and there was an acknowledgement, a recognition of the inner self. And so the Upanishads are largely a description of what this inner self is and how to realize our true nature. So, the Mandukya Upanishad. Is there a sound?
Is that? We must have a mystery participant. Everyone's external sounds are muted, so I don't know what that is.
So the Mandukya Upanishad. So this is very short, it's very beautiful, and it's a description of the 4 stages or states of consciousness. And all of our yoga practice is a journey through these states of consciousness as well. All of life is a journey through these states of consciousness, all of yoga as well. And the Om mantra is a way of experiencing these states of consciousness within a single sound. And I'm going to read this to you now. The Mandukya Upanishad. Om stands for the supreme reality. It is a symbol for what was, what is, and what shall be. Om represents also what lies beyond past, present, and future. Brahman, which is the way that the divine was described in the Upanishads, so Brahman being the name of the divine. Brahman is all, and the self is Brahman. And this self has 4 states of consciousness. The first is called Vaishvanara, in which one lives with all of the senses turned outward, aware only of the external world. Taijasa is the name of the second, the dreaming state, in which, with the senses turned inward, one enacts the impressions of past deeds and present desires. The third state is called prajna, of deep sleep, in which one neither dreams nor desires. There is no mind in prajna, there is no separateness in prajna, but the sleeper is not conscious of this. Let one become conscious in prajna, and it will open the door to the state of abiding joy. Prajna, sorry, I hope you're okay with the door. All-powerful and all-knowing, dwells in the hearts of all as the ruler. Prajna is the source and the end of all. The fourth is the super conscious state called Turiya, neither inward nor outward, beyond the senses and the intellect, in which there is none other than the divine, who is the supreme goal of life, who is infinite peace and love. Realize this. Turiya is represented by Om, and though indivisible, it has 3 distinct sounds. A stands for Vaishvanara, and those who know this through mastery of the senses obtain the fruit of their desires and attain greatness. U indicates Taijasa, and those who know this by mastering even their dreams become established in wisdom. In their family, everyone leads the spiritual life. corresponds to prajna, and those who know this, by stilling the mind, find their true stature and inspire everyone around to grow. The mantra Om stands for the supreme state of Turiya, without parts, beyond birth and death, symbol of everlasting joy. And those who know Om as the self become the self. Truly, they become the self. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So this is the entire Mandukya Upanishad. And to hear this chanted, to learn to chant this is quite a beautiful practice, as it brings us into this experience of the entire self through all of these states of consciousness, through all of this experience of engaging with the world, to turning the focus inwards, to going deeply within. So our journey starts here. And we're going to chant the Om mantra. So for those of you that are joining us via Zoom, please just take this moment, wherever you might be, to just stop, to pause, to close the eyes if you're comfortable to do so, and to be here in body, in mind, with the breath. Make this connection with the breath. And take a breath in. And breathe out with a feeling of letting go of any tensions, any troubles. To just be here, in body, in mind. Breathing. And bring the focus to the Hridaksha, which is the heart space, the heart center. Connecting with the breath here. We're going to divide the mantra into its parts, into the phonemes A, O, M. So we'll just chant A to begin with. Vaishvanara, engagement with the world, senses turned outwards. Let's start by breathing in. Join us from home. And the O sound, deep breath in. And the full pranavam. Let's take a breath in and together. And very softly, this last time. And feeling that the sounds settle in the heart. A moment of quietness. Amazing that the whole spectrum of our experience of life can be contained within one mantra. Of course, the yogas, of which there are many paths, are this way of returning to this experience of the self.
Beautiful. And adding a positive vibration to the world by chanting the Om mantra. It sends out a ripple everywhere. So this morning you've done good to raise the level of vibration in the world, even if only by an iota. Welcome to those of you who've just arrived. Rosemary, I think I saw you somewhere. Have you come in? Hi. And those of you in the back, feel free to come and join us. There's lots of room in the front here. You can bring a mat or a cushion. And you're just on time. Is that Ella? Come and sit down. Grab a mat and a cushion. Come and join us. So what we want to do for you today, and time is a little tight, is go through the framework of the teacher training program. So we've drawn on, Mandy will go into more detail a bit later, but we've drawn on all of the traditions that we're familiar with and that we've practiced ourselves in drawing up this program. So what we're going to do is go through a presentation, and this is where my IT skills come into being. So I can see all of you there in Zoom. Let me know if there's an issue. Otherwise, what we're going to do is open this, and we're going to screen share this. Right, share that, and we're going to open this. And you should all be able to see that slide. Can you nod if you can see that? Vinu, yeah?
Or a thumbs up.
Or thumbs up. Janine, thank you. And Ratna. All right, we're off to go. We're ready to go. You can see the background graphic on this is the hall at our last retreat. And we had a wonderful time with nearly a full house. This was just before the latest lockdown. At the top is our logo. Mandy's designed such a beautiful logo, drawing on elements from the block. You can see the gum leaves, and it's all made up in kookaburra feathers around the outside. And then the logo for the actual Hatha Yoga method, which is
based on the Sri Yantra.
Based on the Sri Yantra, the interlocking triangles, which when you look up at the ceiling at night when you're teaching, the shadows form exactly that pattern. It's been quite amazing. I looked up once, I saw Sri Yantra on the roof. I thought, we're in the right place. So, first slide. How do we do this? Play. Right. And that's just, again, a picture of the empty hall just before the session started. And it's such a wonderful feeling when we're here getting ready for one of our day retreats to feel the energy in the room. So module 1 begins with a broad introduction, the world of yoga. And each module, you'll see there are 10 modules in all. Mandy will take you through the framework in detail at the end of this presentation. So don't worry too much about the detail at this point, just a broad overview. Session 1 of module 1 is yoga through the ages, going from ancient to modern. Yoga's changed enormously over the centuries, obviously. Session 2 is the foundation of yoga, and we've already quoted from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And so the yamas and the niyamas are the first of the first two of the 8 rungs of the ladder of yoga. Session 3 of module 1 is an asana, is posture, from the ascetic traditions to the modern wellness movement. And session 4, we go into some of the masters and the mystics, the lineages and the methods that are prevalent today. For each module, we have a number of reference texts. And for session 1, the reference text, there are both required and recommended reading. This first book by A.G. Mohan, Yoga for Breath, for Body, Breath and Mind, is required reading for module 1.
So this is Yoga for Body, Breath and Mind. So this is written by the Mohans, who are my personal teachers, and probably from my personal experience, and even more broadly, what I see in the world around us, Indra and Mohanji are two of the most remarkable living masters of these traditions. The breadth of their knowledge is quite incredible. We're lucky to have hosted them here at Kookaburra Creek, and it could be some time, if ever, before they're able to return from their home in Chennai, India. So this particular book is the first one that they wrote, and it's required reading. It's a wonderful reference book. So the books that we have listed as required reading are all books that you don't necessarily need to read from cover to cover during the training, but you'll refer to them for life. So we've been careful to include the books in the curriculum that you will have for life. So the Upanishads, for instance, you'll refer to this for life. I've been referring to some of these texts and these books for decades. So it is an investment worth making for that alone. So this is a wonderful book. It goes into, I've still got the receipt from buying it in India in 2008. I think Helen, where's Helen? You were there. So this book here has lots of little sequences, diagrams, and it goes into the mechanics of asana practice, and it is a good foundation text to refer to for teaching as well. It's very practical, it's very pragmatic, as are they. So even though they're deeply spiritual people and teachers, they're also very practical and pragmatic, which is the aim of this course as well, to bridge both worlds. So yoga for body, breath and mind. I'll just say one more thing before I hand it back. The suggested reading for this module is another book by Mohanji, Yoga Reminder. And for everyone who is joining this program, we're giving this to you as a gift. So you don't need to buy this. And also for your practice, the Rudraksha Mala beads, also a helpful support for your meditation practice. So Yoga Reminder, another beautiful book by the Mohans. And we have also suggested the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So you can buy a copy of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, or you can find this online quite easily as well. So, and this is the thing with a lot of these source texts, you can find them online, a translation. So the translations that we have recommended are often from the point of view of those teachers, those masters who have some depth of knowledge, experience, and realization themselves.
That's correct. And the other suggested reading is this little book here, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, by Swami Venkateshananda, and that's available as a PDF download for everyone, should they wish.
That's not in module 1.
There they are. Mandy mentioned the Mohans.
Ah.
Aren't they beautiful? All of them. And Indra just glowing, and A.G. Mohan glowing. He spent 17 years at the feet of Krishnamacharya. So many of you will know Krishnamacharya is really the founder of modern yoga, the 3 streams, Iyengar and Patabi Joyce and Ashtanga. So there they are. Where is that taken, Mandy?
This is from February last year, so just before the whole pandemic. And I was lucky enough to be in India with them for a devotion retreat and to do our own tour of Tamil Nadu as well. So just before all of this, so it was wonderful to have that experience with them.
Yeah. Beautiful people. Module 2, Yoga for Body, Breath and Mind, 4 sessions again. The reference texts you can see here, Mandy will talk to in a minute, the Yoga of the Subtle Body and the Upanishads. Session 1, Anatomy and Asana. So as you've mentioned, we want to go into pragmatic detail about yoga, not just the esoteric, not just the mystical, but also work very closely in relation to bridging our knowledge of anatomy with asana, from the ascetic traditions to the modern movements. Session 2 goes into something a little more esoteric, the Taittiriya Upanishad, the koshas and the multidimensional self. That's a wealth of information. We could spend an hour and a half talking just about that. Session 3, the subtle body, body, mind to soul. We're not just the physical body. We're not just the mind. There's some other element to our being that we discover, that we uncover, we reveal through our practice. And then session 4, Prakriti, Purusha, what's that?
Gunas.
And the gunas, understanding the nature of the self through Shankya and the Yoga Sutras. So the reference texts.
Okay, so Yoga of the Subtle Body is, we've put this down as required reading because it goes beyond the anatomy that you will find in a usual text on anatomy and physiology, in that it is looking at the intersections between the physical and the energetic and the spiritual from a yogic point of view. So it is quite a remarkable reference book. So this one is on the required list. And the Upanishads, so this particular translation by Eknath Eshvara is poetic, it's beautiful. And it is one that I read every day and often refer to as well. There are many other versions, including one by the poet Yeats. So whatever appeals to you. And again, you'll find the source texts online very easily as well.
Okay. Oh, we're going backwards. That's just a view of here. It's so beautiful in the morning. The sunlight shines through the Om mantra and projects a little Om on the floor. So module 3, the Yoga of Krishnamacharya, and you can see Krishnamacharya's picture on the puja there to the right. And the 4 sessions for module 3, session 1, Applied Anatomy and Physiology. Is that the one that we outsource?
No.
In asana and pranayama. Session 2, yoga for everybody, so stages of life. We've had yoga classes from yoga for kids to people who can, confined to a chair, and yoga can be applied to anyone at any stage of life. So that's what that's about. Session 3, yoga ethics, very important, particularly come into focus, I think, in recent times. And I'm sure all of you will be aware that there have been examples where the tradition has been corrupted by people who have questionable ethics. So we thought it important to ground our practice and our teaching in the discussion about yoga ethics, their professional application, the language, the use of language in our teaching, the use of props, and also what is appropriate in terms of adjustments, whether you do adjustments or not, whether you ask permission before you do. Session 4, empowered communication, and this is a session on trauma-aware teaching. Our reference texts here, again, yoga therapy is the required reading, and the body keeps the score as suggested reading.
So Yoga Therapy is another book by the Mohans, and this goes a little more into the therapeutic application of the various practices. So not just asanas, but also the pranayama, using mantras and mudras as a support to starting to personalize our yoga practice and also our teaching. So obviously, as a teacher, you'll want to adapt what it is that you're teaching to suit the person before you. And we take this approach to our own practice very importantly as well. So this requires a foundation of knowledge, obviously, and it also requires all of these other components that Robert is talking about as well, like this capacity to communicate effectively, to read bodies, to know who the person is before you, essentially. So this is the resource for that. And the suggested reading, and this is a book that was actually recommended to me by Rosemary. Thank you very much. It's quite a remarkable book in that it goes beyond yoga. It goes into the psychology of well-being and the effect that trauma and experience has upon the nervous system and how we can recalibrate and heal from trauma ourselves, and how we can apply this as teachers in very sensitive, compassionate, and effective ways. So this is suggested reading, but a beautiful book. It actually comes with a workbook as well. So if you're working with your own issues from the past, then this is a wonderful reference.
It's up on the screen. The Body Keeps the Score.
It's in the prospectus. It's in the prospectus. So everything that we're referring to here is in the prospectus. It's on the website, so you can easily, we're up to module 3. So you can see that there is a column that has a reading list if you have the prospectus in front of you. So this is available for everyone here physically, and it's also available as a download on our website.
Yeah.
So,
right, moving on. That's India.
that is
Where was that taken?
that is near Ramana Maharishi's ashram when we were doing the
Of Arunachala.
circumambulation of Arunachala. That's right.
All these pilgrimage sites that are out of reach from us at this point in time, we want to bring them here for you and give you the experience of being able to share in some of the wonderful energy that these places have. Module 4, Yoga of the Mind. Yoga is so much more than asana, as you all know. And really, asana, according to Patanjali and some of the other writers, is only there to support your meditation practice. So learning to stabilize the body so that you can start to explore the more subtle stability of the mind and take yourself to a place where the mind and the heart are still. This is the essence of module 4. And again, we reference here required reading now, not recommended reading, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Venkateshananda. That's this little book you can download. And also a wonderful and very well regarded text. It's looking like you've read that a few times, Mandy.
Our dog, when it was a puppy, not
Which dog?
Not this one, the large one, had a thing for ripping up, well, everything.
She was trying to read it to her credit.
So the cover is gone.
That's Vivekananda's translation. Beautiful, beautiful, powerful text. Session 1, the higher limbs of yoga, learning to chant the Yoga Sutras. And we'll be doing quite a bit of music in the teacher training program because In a way, music is a universal language that all traditions utilize in some way or another. Session 2, sankalpa, meaning intention. You're here because you have some intention, and sankalpa is the secret of manifesting your intention. So it's been kind of brought into the new age with, you know, The Secret and positive thinking and all of this, but it drives right back to the very early practices of yoga, sankalpa, the power of your mind to manifest, and beliefs, and how we overcome our bias and conditioning to open our minds. Session 3, the kleshas, what are the obstacles? They're listed in the texts. And session 4, the nervous system, the body, mind, divine continuum. Did you want to say anything about that?
Well, we have gone into the required reading, or the suggested reading for this particular module. So we'll also be drawing on psychology for this one from modern Western point of view, and looking at the intersection of yoga with modern practice. So I think Robert has mentioned how important and pivotal this book is. This was written, I think, close to 100 years ago. Swami Vivekananda was one of the yogis that brought yoga to the Western world. He went to America over 100 years ago and gave lectures on these topics. And this is one of the reasons that the Yoga Sutras became one of the most important and pivotal texts. There are many. The Yoga Sutras do have a disproportionate impact and relevance to modern yoga. And so this is largely attributed to Swami Vivekananda. So you can buy this book easily online. It's still in print and still a very important text.
1898, the Parliament of Religions in New York. And he left India with his turban and his robes, and he turned up to present this new paradigm to the world. Quite a brave step, because at those times, if you left Bharat, if you left India, you lost your caste. You weren't able to return to your place in society if you left the motherland. So it was a big step for him. Vivekananda, we went to Kanyakumari. Who was with us at Kanyakumari? Yes, a couple of you were there. And there's a beautiful big rock where Vivekananda meditated, and you can go down into this room under the temple on the rock. That's the southernmost point of India, remarkable place.
It is where he had this realization that this knowledge was something that could benefit the whole world and that he must take this step.
Wonderful. We'll share those stories with you. There's our wonderful Mandy. And where was that taken?
Oh, that's in Rajasthan, as you can tell by all the gold.
Beautiful. India is a remarkable, remarkable place. Okay, module 5, the subtle self. And the reference texts there we'll go into in a minute. The Laya Yoga by Venkateshananda and the Subtle Body by Cindy Dale. Session 1, the subtle body. Kundalini Yoga, those of you who've delved into Kundalini Yoga will be familiar with the chakras, the nadis, which are the subtle channels in the body through which the prana flows, not the obvious ones like the arteries and veins or even the nerves, more subtle than that even, chakras, nadis and the prana, the life force. Session 2, how to work with that prana. What is pranayama? Yama, observation really, more than control, I think. Prana, the life force. Session 3, pranayama and sound. And you had a little taste of that chanting the pranavam before we started this morning, but we'll be going into that in some depth. And then a fairly esoteric branch of yoga called Laya Yoga, chakras, mantras, and I'm not sure, and sound, chakras, mantra, and sound. So quite a strong emphasis on the use of sound, chanting, and vibration in our practice.
So the text for this, there's this massive book here, which is called The Subtle Body. And this goes way beyond yoga. It goes into the various different traditions. So it's even looking at American Indian views on the subtle body, Christian perspectives, Jewish perspectives on the subtle and the spiritual bodies as well. So we haven't put it as required, but it is a very interesting and in-depth resource if you're interested in that. It's not all evidence-based, it's going into the traditions. So a lovely book. Robert mentioned Laya Yoga, and while we don't have this on the suggested or recommended or essential reading list, this is an interesting book. It's quite dense, so we wouldn't really expect anyone to read all of this, but it's a wonderful resource and reference for what is a esoteric branch of yoga, I suppose, but it is expressed through modern Kundalini yoga and Tantra, the Tantric traditions as well. And so we'll be working with a lot of the wonderful and beautiful mantras of the yoga traditions and looking at their healing effects. And one of the benefits, of course, of a year-long program like this is that you really get to deeply experience these practices and mantras. It is said that you need to recite a mantra 10,000 times to really experience and embody the mantra and to become the mantra and for it to have this positive influence on your life. And in the modern world, when we want everything so quickly and we want to see the results immediately, to give ourselves this time is so important, so essential to progress and depth on this path of yoga.
Swami Venkateshananda, when he was still in the body in the early 1980s, recorded a Laya Yoga session and provided us with a text. And his instruction to us at that time was not to share that too broadly, that people had to be ready for the practice, to be given the tools. So we thought it appropriate, rather than to provide this in our monthly retreats or our normal classes, to embed it into the teacher training program. It's a very powerful process, working with the chakras and the Kundalini. Okay, whoops. Oh, there we are with another wonderful person. That's Nitya Mohan. And that was taken here with, I don't know if you can identify the Murti, that's Hanuman, the monkey god representing power and strength. And that came back in a suitcase from Bali, weighs about 17 kilos. So everything else had to be given away. And Hanuman came wrapped in a blanket back from Bali and now is installed up on our property. So she knows all the ragas and the various instruments, and she has been here teaching us, and we were hoping that she'd be here to celebrate our 20th anniversary. This year is our 20th anniversary of the Yoga Centre, but of course due to travel restrictions she can't, perhaps next year. So that's Nitya Mohan. Module 6, Buddhi, mind. Buddhi means awakened awareness or wisdom, and wisdom and creativity go together. Those of you who are creative, and we all are, those of you who've discovered your creativity in whatever avenue, whether it's writing or drawing or painting or music, will understand how creativity taps into higher wisdom. The great composers of our Western traditions talk about inspiration coming from they don't know where, when these wonderful pieces of music were composed during the Baroque period particularly. So we go into session 1, Western and Yogic psychology, the concept of consciousness, drawing particularly on Carl Jung and his work in relation to the collective unconscious and his understanding of the synthesis of Eastern mysticism and Western psychology. He was a great seer, Carl Jung, and has influenced our Western psychology greatly. Session 2, creative inspiration, Vijnayamaya Kosha, the koshas we mentioned a little earlier. This is one of the layers of our being. Session 3, Jnana Yoga, and I think you saw that picture of the sadhus around Arunachala. Jnana Yoga, of course, rests with Ramana Maharishi, and his picture is sitting to the left there, black and white one. Simple practice of inquiry. What is the nature of the self? I talk about me, I, mine. What does that mean, actually? and session 4, Mandukya Upanishad, one of the most beautiful, succinct representations of yoga. And the text here, Who Am I, by Ramana Maharishi, and that's a required text, the Mandukya Upanishad that Mandy read from earlier, and a book that has to find you, really, the Tripura Rahasya, the mystery beyond the Trinity, also by Ramana Maharishi. We were in Rishikesh and just on the way home and went down into this little bookshop under the bridge where the cafe is up on the hill. And there on the shelf was a copy of Tripura Rahasya. And that's one of the treasured books in our library.
You can also buy it on Book Depository.
You have to go to Rishikesh and find the bookshop.
So, Who Am I by Ramana Maharishi is essentially an essay. It's not a whole book, and you will find this online as well. And it does describe this process of self-inquiry, which is yoga. And this process has come to be known as Advaita Vedanta. So as I just mentioned earlier, Vedanta is the knowledge that came out of and after the Vedas, and Advaita is this concept of unity, of oneness. And so it might seem paradoxical that to become this uniquely creative and expressive individual, that we draw on this collective wisdom and knowledge. It is through the filter of this body, this mind, and this person sitting here that this wisdom is personalized and expressed in a very unique way. And this is fundamentally important as a yoga teacher. Not only do you want to be able to convey the depth of these teachings with a real connection to their source, but you want to do so in a way that is uniquely you. So through this training, we're not seeking to create Mandy and Robert clones or anything along those lines, but to support everybody to be more of who you are and to express that in a way that can be received and understood by others as a way of being in the world, as a way of sharing this knowledge in your way, if that makes sense. And so we take this process of self-inquiry to work out who we are, essentially, because we get lost in who we think we are or who society might expect us to be. But beyond all of that, when all of that is stripped away, the question is, who am I? And once we have a deep experience of who we are, then we're able to bring all of this out into the world.
Guru is within. It's not something outside. It's not a person, but it's an inner wisdom that we're seeking. All right, so Buddhi mind, that's a Bali. Was that the Havan in Bali, I think?
No, that's in Rishikesh.
Is that up in Rishikesh?
Yeah.
At Rainforest House. Before we went to Gangotri, I think.
Yes.
At the Havan. We walked up to the source of the Ganges River, again with some people who were here with us, and had the most marvelous experience up at the glacier there. Module 7, Personal and Professional Transformation, the Residential Retreat. So, session 1, Yogic Sadhana, your personal practice. No point teaching if you don't practice yourself. Even though they say those who can do and those who can't teach. That's not the case here. Our teaching comes out of our practice. So both of us have been established in a daily personal practice, and that differs for everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And learning to develop your own personal practice is a fundamental, of fundamental importance to your own development as a teacher, as someone who will be passing this knowledge on. Session 2, Becoming Wise, transforming your mind, body and heart. And wisdom and information are very different. We try to move away from overload and clutter to an intuitive understanding of the appropriate action in any circumstance. So yoga being skill in action, according to the Bhagavad Gita. Session 3, dinacharya, your daily routine. What a difference it makes if you wake up and do a walk in the forest or some yoga practice rather than immediately clocking onto your social media or whatever, logging into your email to start your day, dinacharya, and then Ishvara Pradidhana, in harmony with nature and service to the world. And the reference text here, Vijnaya Bhairava Tantra, boof, amazing text, and blue sky strategy.
That's module 7 and 8.
7 and 8, we can mention one.
Okay, so these two modules take place over a residential retreat, which will be here, and you have the option of either staying here during this time or coming for the day. And the emphasis is really on establishing or understanding what a supportive daily routine is for you and becoming established in that as well and supported in that. So the text that we have suggested for this is the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, and this is a really beautiful poetic version, the Radiant Sutras. But again, you can find the source text easily online. And this is thought to be some of the earliest transmissions of yogic teaching in the form of lessons, the yuktis. So these were lessons given by Shiva to his wife, Parvati. So quite a beautiful book. We've also got a book here called Blue Sky Strategy. And so some of you may know that I have worked as a CEO and I really love business theory and I find it quite interesting. And there's a lot of parallels between yoga practice and succeeding in business, actually. And this particular book, I found very helpful. And I saw a lot of those parallels, even though the authors have no experience in yoga at all. This concept of a blue sky mind, this non-competitive mindset, is equally applicable in our personal life and in business to help overcome the internal obstacles and the cliches to be successful in whatever it is that we might choose in life. So that is business theory. So if you have an interest in that, then it is a very useful book and strategy to succeed in business. And as yoga teachers, it can be quite a not competitive sphere, but there are a lot of yoga teachers looking to find their place in the world. And so we want to support everyone to express yourself in a way that's uniquely you and to be supported in your endeavors, whether it is to become a yoga teacher or succeed whatever it is that you're doing in life. Yeah.
Business grounded in ethics, very important. So the ethics comes earlier in the program, but when we're going into the world of money and business, that we do that from a very sound, solid yogic ethical base. Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
This book isn't about ethics.
No, but
it's about, it's business and meditation. Business and ethics is equally important to succeed. Sometimes putting aside personal ambition and cultivating the yogic qualities is a support for our own endeavors. And of course, if we do act in the world, whether it's personally, family, or business, in a way that's congruent with our yogic and personal values and ethics, then we're much more likely to succeed because there's less obstacles to our success, for one thing, and we're putting some good into the world, very importantly.
Yeah, do no harm. Do no harm. Bhairava, by the way, that mask up there is Bhairava, and that comes from a temple in Kerala. And Bhairava is the fierce aspect of Shiva who protects the temple. So the Yoga Sutras, Beautiful book. Oh,
I'm
this is
not
the
sure.
residential retreat part. This is what you get when you come on residential retreat.
That was a really good cake, actually.
That's
That
Mandy's
was,
vegan dessert. I don't know what's waiting for morning
that
tea.
was a vegan sticky date cake with a caramelized cashew cream. That was a good one.
Mouth's watering now. Okay, module 8, yogic living, and also the residential retreat.
So one thing that happened is that these were on slide 7.
Okay.
So you didn't go through those ones.
That's fine. You can go through. The authentic teacher, living what you teach. Session 2, the ethics of daily life, food and the yogic diet. Session 3, dinacharya, the daily life. And session 4, as we mentioned, Ishvara Pradidhana. The reference text, yoga and Ayurveda. I think we've had a small update to that, so let Mandy explain that.
So I think the slide beforehand had replicated that content. So what's missing is the content for module 7, which is becoming wise, applying yogic knowledge to transform your own body, mind, and heart. And sharing your light, finding, communicating, and presenting your passion. And the yogic visionary, applying yogic knowledge to your life and to your work. So we'll be going into these during the retreat. And you'll also be supported to write a business plan during the retreat. And regardless of whether you intend to go into business or not, it is very useful to apply this structure and forward thinking to your own personal life as well. So you know what your sankalpa is, you're connected to your intention, and you have the strategies and the resources to achieve and attain that. So as I said, there's all these parallels between business and personal fulfillment as well.
Okay, so there's yoga in daily life. That looks like Boranup, is it?
That is Boranup Forest.
So we do our retreats down in Margaret River. We do a meditation in the forest. And module 9, into the world. So we're not going to isolate ourselves in a cave high on the mountains. Session 1, our continuing education. And here again, the business of yoga, processes, procedures, and finance, what that means and how we can integrate our ethics and our knowledge into our yoga practice. The karma yogi, karma meaning, karma is a broad topic, but essentially meaning service, work, action, the path of the peaceful warrior. Session 3, bhakti yoga, which is devotion. Bhakti means the flower of your heart opening, using mantra, music, and this adoration of the divine. And session 4, how you can be yourself in a crowded world, marketing methods, ethics again, and influence. And this is really Mandy's area of expertise. Our texts there, the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, skill in action.
So the Bhagavad Gita, I've got this version by Eknath Eshvara, and he's quite a remarkable writer and teacher of the deeper yogas. So I do really like this version, but again, you'll find many translations and commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, which is a small portion of the Mahabharata, actually. So it is the essence of this great epic. So this is one of the Puranic texts that came out of this post-Vedic period. So we've also put the other books by Swami Vivekananda, the same author of this text. And so they're wonderful resources. And also, it's not on the reading list, but I will put it on the list. The Upadesha Sharam by Ramana Maharishi describes these 4 traditional yogas very succinctly as well. So they're the text for module 9, which is the last module that we would do together. And this is close to graduation.
Bhagavad Gita, Krishna instructing Arjuna the warrior king, who had to go onto the battlefield and fight against his corrupt relatives and didn't want to, so I'm not doing this. And the whole dialogue is between Krishna as his charioteer. And one of the most beautiful verses out of the Bhagavad Gita, fly unto me for refuge with all thy being, and I will protect thee. So are we on to graduation? I'm not sure if I'm going to reveal this.
Module 10.
Okay. Oh, that is the Venkatesha Tirupati, I think. Venkatesha is the Murti in the background there. And
I think that was in Kerala.
In Kerala. Venkateshan undertakes his name from Venkatesha. And the most beautiful thing about it is that he says that his eyes are covered and you see through the corner of the eyes, and then you can never frown at somebody. When you're looking through the corner of your eyes, you have to smile. And the hands are in a beautiful position, like this and like this, saying the blessings are there for you and the waters of life will never come up past your hips. We'll go into some of the meaning of this anthropomorphology a little more deeply during our sessions together. Module 10 is an outsourced module.
So Module 10 will be done online over some time. It's 20 hours online with Leslie Kamenoff and Amy Matthews, who are the authors of this particular book here. And this goes into the anatomy and physiology of Hatha Yoga in a very engaging and specific way. So it's not irrelevant and dry anatomy and physiology training. It's very much specific to the asana practice, the movement practices, also pranayama, the breathing, the physiology of this, meditation as well to an extent, the mudras and the bandhas, and provides the detailed explanation. So we've decided to outsource this because this is such a wonderful resource and it's not our personal main focus or area of expertise. So we thought it would be, we can be of greater service by focusing on our areas of strength and drawing on some of the best educators in the world. And this is one of the wonderful things with online learning, that we are able to integrate teachers like this into the program to provide that level of depth as well. So this is the book. You don't have to have it. You'll be given a lot of resources through the online portal as well.
Okay. So we're on to the last part of our presentation, and this is about the scholarships. So as you may be aware, we decided that we would offer 2 partial scholarships for the teacher training, and we had a large number of applications. Many of you are perhaps here this morning. And I have to say that this was one of the most difficult processes we've been through in this whole development of this program, because the standard of the applications was just outstanding from everybody, and it was almost impossible to choose, to pick 2 out of the many applications we received. So we thought we'd just ditch that. But Mandy reminded me we'd promised this, so we had to make the selection. So forgive us if you're not the successful applicant, and congratulations if you are. That's the Buddha outside with pink flowers on his lap. So our weekly supervised classes are part of the practice. Teaching Yoga by Donna Fari and the Professional Yoga Teacher's Handbook. We will be giving all of the participants an opportunity to run a class here or at an alternative venue if that's more appropriate. And go on.
No, I was going to say, with regards to the teaching of the class, this doesn't happen immediately, and it doesn't need to be asana-based yoga, because we're giving an equal emphasis to the various aspects or angas of yoga, which include meditation, the yoga nidra, learning to guide people to relax deeply, hatha yoga, pranayama, yogic living. what you do doesn't necessarily need to include the movement practices. So this question has already been asked of me. Do I have to stand up and demonstrate and deliver a hatha yoga class in a particular way or format? The answer is no. We're going to guide and support you to teach what is most relevant and meaningful for you.
Could be playing the harmonium. All right.
The texts that are suggested, these are resources that have been written for teacher trainees, actually, by Sage Roundtree. So this is the Yoga Teacher's Handbook. This is Teaching Yoga Beyond the Poses by the same author. The book by Donna Fahy, I don't have my copy here, and this isn't on the list yet, but I will put it on the suggested reading. It's a wonderful book recently published by Bernie Clark, who is one of the most renowned yin yoga teachers in the world. Okay.
There's a sample teacher training class, right?
That's in Rishikesh.
And there are probably a couple of familiar faces in there. Everyone turned around. Okay, graduation day and dinner in June 2022, all being well. Session 1, final words and reflections from everyone participating, the graduation ceremony. A havan, which we've also got tonight, a wonderful fire ceremony, and then dinner. We'll round off our year together. And as you may be aware, there's the havan, and that was a havan done just a year or so ago here in the hall. Beautiful, powerful ceremony. As you may be aware, Mandy has successfully, maybe you should talk to this slide.
Okay, so, all right, so in terms of what you gain from a professional point of view, this training is registered at the highest level with Yoga Australia, which is a 500-hour training. So 300 of those hours are face-to-face with us, and 200 of the hours are what you're doing at home in terms of your personal practice, in terms of some of your reading, and in terms of some of the assignments that we're setting for you. And we're trying to be very diverse with what we're asking you to do at home and practical. So there's a little bit of writing, mainly in the earlier stages of the training. And that's really to just become very familiar with the works, with a lot of the content and the concepts, and integrating this into your understanding of yoga. And then also you're going to be doing some little infographics. So we're not all writers. Some of us are more visual in the way that we might express ourselves. You'll be learning to design classes and drawing up those classes for specific groups. You'll also be, as I mentioned, writing a business plan. And one thing that you'll also be supported to do is to not only find your area of deep interest and expertise, but to design masterclasses, workshops, and retreats. So we're going to help you to do that. That's one thing that we've been doing for many decades. And it is a way of really going deeply into a particular area of yoga, or integrating yoga with another area of expertise as well. If you're an artist, bringing in meditation with beautiful artwork as an example. If you are a psychologist, incorporating mindfulness into work with clients. So working with who you are, with all of the knowledge that you've gained in other areas, and bringing these together to uniquely put forward your own programs and workshops and areas of expertise. So you'll be guided to do all of this at home as part of that 200 hours. So it might sound like a lot, but the idea is that we're starting to integrate a lot of this into daily life. a little bit of yoga, including some asana practice, meditation, pranayama, working with some of the more esoteric yogas and learning to practice these. As I mentioned, it is said that for a mantra to really become deeply embedded, we need to repeat it 10,000 times. That's quite a lot of times. But over the course of a year, you'll be able to do this without this pressure. There's no sense of real urgency, that we give ourselves the time and space to integrate all of this quite naturally into our lives. And so this is why we've designed this program in such a way. So 500 hours with Yoga Australia, which means at the end of this program, you'll be certified as a level 1 yoga teacher. So actually a lot of teacher trainings these days are 200 hours and can be done over 2 or 3 weeks. And that is the American standard. And you are then able to go and teach yoga, which I personally don't believe is enough. If that is part of a broader education in yoga, if you've been practicing for decades and this is just a way of consolidating knowledge, that's, of course, that's not a problem at all. But if this is it, it's not quite enough to be a foundation for becoming a deep practitioner or a teacher. And so 500 hours, we believe, is a good amount of hours over a good period of time. So level 1, yoga teacher, which means that you can go and teach yoga, that you will have the knowledge, you'll have the skills to go and teach, to go and share. And you also, with this training course, will be eligible to be a level 2 teacher with 4 years teaching experience. So a level 2 teacher in Australia requires 500 hours of teacher training. A level 1 teacher requires 350 hours. So if you go on to teach for 4 years, this training is deemed to be a sufficient education. Of course, over time, professional development is very important. Keeping your knowledge up to date and maintaining peer support is also very important.
So how things have changed now. There's everywhere registration, IYTA, Yoga Australia, very well respected and renowned. Back in the day, this was the certificate from Venkateshananda. So that was what you had to do. No 500, 300 hours. You've got a instruction, you went out and taught, and there you go. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's his own signature. There we are in Rishikesh from Swami Dayananda's ashram. And you were there, no? Who's with us there? That was Joe and Swami. And our daughter Arya, who's now all grown up, but looking out across the Ganges River to the Beatles ashram on the other side of the bank. Scholarships, almost impossible task to decide, as all applications were of equal merit. In the end, a decision had to be made and awards are offered to the following, both of whom are now invited to say a few words. First, a scholarship covering a portion of the candidate's tuition fees has been awarded to Guglielmo, who's sitting over there with our dog. Well done and congratulations. And the second scholarship, also covering a portion of the candidate's tuition fees, awarded to Janine Allen. And Janine, are you here? There she is there. Congratulations, Janine. And again, an affirmation that all the applications were of the very highest standard. And we're very sorry we're not able to offer it to everyone who's applied. But at the end of the day, this is the decision we reached. So perhaps, Janine, you might like to say a few words first, and then we'll ask. Put you on the spot.
I'm so thankful. I haven't stopped thinking about this since the first email popped up like 3 weeks ago, and I put my application in, and I feel really blessed. Just thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to diving in and getting into the training.
Good.
I can't wait to get started.
Mandy will be in touch with you later in the week to go through some of the details. And Guglielmo.
it's surprising what life presents to you, because in the last 2 years, I've been coming across closed doors, and a couple of months ago, I reached one of my lowest points in my life because I didn't know where to go and what steps to take. And then I heard about the training. I said, I'll give it a go. And this morning I was meditating, and a voice came to me and just said, whatever will be, will be. And it just feels like I'm being pushed by something to go in a particular direction. And I thank you, Mandy and Robert. I've really enjoyed my time so far here at Kookaburra Creek on the retreats that I've been, and I'm just looking forward to the next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dogs love Gulielmo for some reason.
Yes, they do. It was funny because when I can't remember her name.
Or
No,
Maple.
it's
Maple. Yeah.
I just felt her energy, and when she came and started speaking, it just felt like our energies became one, and yeah, it was good.
Well, congratulations to you both. So we're kind of going a little bit over time, but it's important that we do give you a little more detail. So Mandy, tell me when you want to flick through the slides, and I'll just hand over to you.
We'll just go to page 7.
Page 7.
So you have the prospectus. So on page 7, we have the program outline with some of the dates. So these dates are fixed for the year. The way we have designed and structured the program is that the modules are able to be done online via Zoom if you are not able to attend in person. And if you're not available over that weekend, if you were ill, if there was another commitment, then it will be recorded. So as long as it is completed before the next module, so sometime within that month, it is okay. So we are in a pandemic. We want to make sure that there is flexibility to make this possible for everybody who needs that level of flexibility. And we just don't know. So this is our reality. So the structure and the dates are all here. As I mentioned, if you look at the dates and think, oh, I can't do the 3rd of October, I'm getting married, or whatever it might be, don't worry, it's not an obstacle. We have said, however, that attending the retreat in person is required. If those dates are problematic for you, let us know, and then, case by case, we can work something out. The private mentoring sessions at the end are done over these 3 months. So there are I think it is about 8 months of coming here every month. So the 7 modules and the retreat. And then following that is a time of integration, finishing off any of the work that you might not have completed, any of the home assignments that aren't completed. You've got this time. And the idea of these mentoring sessions is that each month you come, you touch base, it's just one-on-one. We talk through with either Robert or myself where you're at in terms of your practice, what your aims might be as a teacher, and to really start getting into the detail of your own business plan, your vision and strategies for moving ahead. So that's the idea with the mentoring sessions, and that will be followed by a final module together, and then the graduation day, which is 8 hours. So that is essentially the time commitment. That equals 300 contact hours. And as I mentioned, the 200 hours that you do at home is a way of integrating yoga into your life over 12 months. So it might sound like a big commitment, but actually, if you really want to become a yoga practitioner and a teacher, integrating yoga into life rather than segmenting areas of our life is our aim, actually. So we have the option of payment plans. And a couple of people have asked if it is possible to have a longer term for the payment plan, and so up to 18 months. And again, this is personalized. So if you require a payment plan, then we work out what the time commitment is. And then every 2 weeks or every month, you'll make a payment to us to cover the costs of tuition. So hopefully that is helpful for people. So that's the program outline. You have the dates and the costs are also written there, and the payment methods. So we've been through the actual modules, and so the modules provide a framework and context for what you're actually going to be learning to do. So as a practitioner and a teacher, not only do you want this foundation of knowledge, but you also want to be doing, you want to be practicing something very specific. And so each of these modules includes 2 days here over a weekend, and the days include 4 workshops that Robert has just been through, and these 4 workshops are divided into theoretical content, personal practice, and workshop and discussion as well. And so we're going to be integrating asanas, so the movement practices of yoga, as relevant to the topic. So if we were doing a topic on the subtle body as an example, so the koshas and the chakras, the nadis, then the emphasis will be on an experience of what this is and how we can talk about this and integrate the knowledge into what we're doing in terms of asana and movement practices. As an example, if the theme of the weekend is mindfulness, yogic mindfulness, then we're bringing this into the movement practices. And so we're not segmenting out asana from pranayama, from meditation, from mudra, from bandhas. These are the components that might make up a yoga practice, but we can't separate it out and say that we're just going to do asana now. Yoga doesn't work like that. You can't just put your body in a shape and think that's yoga. We put our body in a shape. We do so mindfully, with intention. We integrate some of the yogic breathing. We might be using the mudras. So mudra means seal. So you might be familiar with the mudras of the hands, for instance. But essentially it means seal. It's a way of bringing focus to different areas of our body, our mind, and our experience in a moment. And so you're going to be learning many asanas, many pranayamas, many methods of meditation, what mindfulness is, how to integrate it into our practice, how to integrate it into life. And you're going to learn to communicate this as well. Yes. We're going to have questions in just a second. But of course, absolutely, you're allowed to ask questions. So that's a little about what we're doing. In terms of the learning areas, so this is page 14. We've got learning outcomes. So we've got the topics that we're going to be covering in each of the modules. So page 14, we start to go into the outcomes. So we get into a little more detail about what it is you're actually going to know and have the confidence to practice and to communicate. So I'm not going to go into all of that now. You do have it in the prospectus, and it is covered under each of the topics in the 10 modules. And you can see that the amount of hours that are dedicated to these learning outcomes is written into the 4th column. And these hours are spread out over the course of the training, and they include both in-person contact hours and non-contact. So if you're looking at number 6, teaching methodologies as an example, we've allocated 30 hours for that. And that 30 hours is what we estimate will be dedicated to this learning area over the course of the training, integrated or incorporated into the modules. So I hope there's no confusion with the way that hours are listed in the prospectus. And then, of course, the competencies are what you're going to demonstrate through the assessments. And so we do have an online learning platform that we're setting up. It's based on Kajabi, which is a fantastic platform actually for courses and online training. So you'll have the opportunity to rewatch all of the workshop content, to submit any work through that portal as well, and to access the various different resources that we're sharing. So we'll give everyone access to that once the training commences. And the competencies will be demonstrated through the assessments, through what you're submitting in terms of the at-home assignments and through engagement. So we'll have a rubric for that for you during the course. So I think we've almost come to the end of our time. So we'll open it up for any questions that you might have now. And also, if you're on Zoom, we'll also give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So you might just want to type those initially into the text field on Zoom. But is there anyone here in the room to start this off who might have a question? Liz.
So it's to say, there's a basic question
Yep.
around the timing for the weekend workshop. So I'm not seeing it somewhere and I can't find it again. The time for the weekend workshop.
I'm pretty sure 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. So that is on page 7. Any other questions? Yes.
We don't have that I can see GSB details in the payment. It says payment, it says how much, but where do you pay to? Are the credit card facilities, is it PSP or number or?
Yeah, you can. Generally what we do is you will have an invoice and you can either pay by credit card using the link in the invoice or deposit to a bank account or PayPal. Or there is the option of a payment plan, which will be credit card deductions on, as I mentioned earlier, that is personalised. So depending on what people might want or need for that.
So you need to accept verbally and then you send an invoice and then the process.
Yeah, well, you would book online and upon booking, there is a deposit of $500. And then the balance is due by the time the training starts, if you want the early bird price. If you can't do it by that time, you just have to let us know. We're pretty flexible. Or there's the option for payment plans. Okay. Any other questions?
You'll have a chance over morning tea, those of you joining us for a cup of tea, to chat a little more informally. But we know we suggested an hour and a half. We're just about at the end of that time.
Yep.
So perhaps it's time to wind this up.
Are there any
There are
questions
no
on
questions
Zoom?
coming from the floor as far as I can see. But feel free also to email us and we're very happy to go into a little more detail. You've done well to sit quietly for an hour and a half. So that's module 1 done. You've got asana sorted. And now a cup of tea.
Was there another question at the back before we end?
I was just asking, I just wanted to know a little bit more about the assessment process, you know, like, is it all online and, or is it, did you say that we're being assessed in person? Is it an assessment practical and then theory?
So the practicum is the teaching that you will do on a Wednesday evening. And so there's 1 hour classes. So each of the participants in the program will have the opportunity to come here to teach, or you can do it from your own space if you're not able to come here. And this is incorporated into the assessment. And also we have an online platform where you can submit assignments, or you can give it to us in person if you're not comfortable submitting it online. So these are there's some little essays, there's some things that you'll be doing at home. There'll also be quizzes that are on the online platform. So all of these will equal up to a final score. But we will say no one is going to fail. And I'm not saying that because we're just going to say, oh yeah, everyone can have a certificate. We're going to support everyone to succeed in this endeavour. And so the assessments will be done as we go along. So each month there'll be the opportunities to submit. And as we mentioned earlier, the 3 months, the first quarter of next year, there'll be time to catch up on all of those assignments and assessment areas as well.
And the 200 hours of home time that, you said 300 contact and
Yeah.
so that forms part of the assessments we do online.
Yes, that's right.
Personal practice.
Yes, because like if you're writing an essay on a component of one of the texts that we have required as an example, then you submit that, and that's something that you'll be doing at home, and that forms part of the assessment. It forms part of your learning. So yeah, so that 200 hours is
part of the reading.
Yeah, that's right. So that's your personal reading, your personal practice. The writing is all done in that time. Okay. All right.
I think that's about it.
We will now go and enjoy some pineapple payasam and some chai, and I hope you can join us for that. And there's more opportunities during this time to ask us personally or informally if you have any more questions as well.
This was our first attempt at Zoom, so thank you to all of you who've joined online. Wonderful to have you with us. And we will only improve from here in terms of our interaction over the 21st century technology. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
See you up at the house. We'll be signing off now, so namaste to the 11 people on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us online, all of you.